take a second and think about the most relaxed time of your life.
Your body's being kind of hypnotized rhythmically with this kind of womb-like heartbeat kind of rhythm. Not always about just, emptiness and relaxation through silence. We can also stimulate the brain to think.
My name is Ray Kelly, and I'm the founder and inventor of Tersa. And welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
Before we get into the interview portion, I want the viewer, the listener, I want you to just take a second and think about the most relaxed time of your life. Or think about, if you don't have that experience, think about what you might imagine that to be, and keep that. Keep that at the front of your mind. Keep that feeling. And with that, I want to welcome Ray Kelly to the show. We're going to get into like the design and the technology of this thing people see behind us here. I'm curious, what is your take on our current ability, the current American ability to even think that's possible, to meditate, to relax, to de-stress on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's tough. I think right now we're seeing an epidemic of anxiety and stress and overthinking, and I think also this old idea of also just kind of addressing like what meditation should be in terms of a stress, right? And this, I think it's become an unachievable goal for many, because this idea of sitting there in infinite silence and the mind is this completely quiet void, it makes people feel like there's a sense of failure in the experience, and it's setting people up to fail, psychologically, and you end up going through this cyclical pattern of, I don't know how to meditate, or I'm not good enough, and then you beat yourself up for your mind being so active. And the truth is, your mind is always active. So there's just different ways that we can kind of make that happen. But I think, broadly speaking, in America in general, we're, it's a country living on subscription pills, synthetics, sleeping pills. I mean, half the population is living on sleeping prescription pills just to get to sleep, and that's crazy, right? To think that we can't get to sleep, or people can't stay asleep because of stress. So yeah, I think in terms of what we're seeing right now in this country in particular is a peak concerning moment of stress disorders that are rife through the country.
How would you even begin a conversation to not even convince somebody, but to open channels of communication to hear why down-regulating is important, why turning off regularly is important, why separating from all of the inputs in social media and technology, and even just our loved ones, and really kind of getting to the us time, the quiet time on a regular basis. How can we even begin to have that conversation with somebody that doesn't think it's possible? But also, I think the most common excuse is, I don't have time for that. There's no way I could regularly introduce that to my life.
Yeah. I think in general, I think to your point, you just nailed it with the family piece. I think when you look at the impact that has in your relationships, right? So when you're in these kind of high stress states and you're not grounded and you're extroverting all your energy, like everything's going out, and that type of energy and frequency that you're putting out is infecting your whole family. It's infecting your relationships and your friends. So a lot of the times people are completely unconscious of these behaviors. And that's where it becomes this very collective experience where your inability to heal yourself, or an inability to have awareness of how you're projecting yourself to others can be hugely damaging just your relationships and your family as well. So that's a big part of the question, is actually how can we get people to actually, one, have awareness of their actions, and how can we get people to start traveling inwards rather than projecting outwards? Because from the second we wake up, we're on our phone before we've even opened our eyes. We're immediately hitting the phone. We're immediately, even with the whole optimization programs that we're all following, if we look at everything on social media right now, if you don't wake up in the morning and get sunlight on your body within the first 10 minutes, your eyeballs are going to explode. And if you don't get lemon water on your gut before you eat in the morning by 7:05, then it's just the wellness protocol in general is quite intense as well. So I think, a big part of this is just simplifying people to slow down and have deeper conversations with yourself. And I think that the fastest path to that is that inward conversation. And for me, moving people off this idea of having to repeat mantras or follow a specific meditation program, ironically becomes stressful, right? The irony of it is it becomes a stressful process.
Even more stress inducing.
Yeah. And I know we'll get to it a little bit more in a minute, but for me, the ultimate goal was music on its own is the most universal human expression that we all love and connect with, right? And I mean, if any human doesn't like music, there's something very wrong. I don't think I've ever met anyone on this planet that doesn't enjoy music. So for me, in terms of getting back to that question, we're really kind of trying to bring people's awareness to using sound and music and vibration and frequency as a way to self-connect. And if you think about, energy, like the language we're speaking right now is something that was created. We as humans made that up. It's not real. And so what we're really focusing on is getting back to things that are real. And what is real in this universe is energy, frequency, vibration. That is the universal language of connectivity. It's how this universe works. It's how we as humans work. It's how our mind works. It's how our cells work. You're always in a state of motion. So really using these organic materials to ground the body is where I believe is like the beginning of helping those break those cycles, break those patterns, and actually reconnect with the body.
Let's go there. A lot of what we're going to talk about includes music, but if you even really break that down, music is nothing other than a sequence of sound. And what is sound? Just wavelengths of energy. Again, the person listening to kind of just go, when's the last time you were in a crap mood and you heard your jam come on the radio, or you intentionally, hey, Alexa, play whatever your song is to introduce that change state. Yeah. Could be a great memory of that concert. It could be maybe a connection. Maybe that's you and your dad's song or you and your daughter's song. Yeah. But it introduces something that is undeniably causing a change state. Energy, the energy you give off is infectious as well, right? So, I think for us, we're using music to connect, basically using music to play frequencies into your body that can help recalibrate that nervous system. And that's one of the things we found through science and research is that music has a profound ability to calm your nervous system. It has the ability, to your point, you can hear an album and it can immediately take you back 10, 15, 20 years to that moment you heard it for the first time. But not only that, you can smell. You can smell the cologne that someone was wearing at that time, or if you were making out with someone for your first kiss in the back of a car, like if that you hear that song, the beer that's spilled on you by the person next to you at the concert.
And that is the wildest thing about what music can do. It's time stamping, right? It can timestamp you immediately, even take you back in time. So I love this idea of knowing that music can take us back to a moment in time so clearly, and I can smell it, I can feel it, I can taste it. And then also then flipping that and saying, well, can we use music to project us in time? Can we use music to propel us forward? And continue this, continue to unlock dream states and unlock higher states of consciousness and download more information? Can it connect us to source? Can we connect to a higher version of ourselves through music? So if it can take us backwards, it can also take us forwards. And that's something, where I'm excited to just keep pushing those boundaries and keep pushing people moving forward.
It's such a unique experience. So I'd love to kind of get into this beautiful device we're talking about here, Tersa. You shared with me earlier, after running through this group experience, some other responses people were having from other experiences. And there was so much variety, and wow, I felt like I was on a journey. Wow, I only felt sensation on one side of my body. Some people were getting emotional, others, having some kind of peripheral neuropathy stopping, diabetics. So there's just a range of physiological and emotional things happening from this immersive sound experience. Why do you think humans going through the same experience are having such drastically different responses?
Yeah, it's a beautiful mystery. We're obviously still, found everything we do is based on science and research of what we have now, but there's just still so much we haven't even unlocked yet as well. And it kind of, as much as this feels like a very futuristic, progressive product, it's kind of wild to think that we're just, in these last few years, really having these serious conversations around sound and the impact it can have. And I think in terms of what it can do is I'm just trying to think how to best articulate
it's hard because there's so much variety, and how do you kind of answer to all those different responses?
Yeah, so I think what we've seen already in such a short amount of time is this insanely wide spectrum of emotions, reactions, feelings. So we've encountered in one whole experience from multiple groups over and over again a connection between both physical and biological reactions, but also spiritual and outer body reactions as well. So there's this really incredible paradigm that we're seeing where we're seeing this cross-section of both the physical and the spiritual components of conversation coming together. And we've seen people have physiological responses like improved sensation in dealing with neuropathy in certain areas. We've had someone recently was deaf in one ear and it was insane. Like we had
he said he was getting kind of not his hearing back, but sensation of hearing.
we didn't even know at the time. We had a guest come in one day and got into the pod, and a lot of people come in and they have no context around what their experience is. There's no setup. They're just coming in blind, having this experience. And we're seeing everyone from all spectrums, from alpha type A's to, the holistic gurus to, the unconscious to the highly conscious. And this particular person came in just this week, and we didn't know at the time, but he was deaf in one ear. And after the experience, he was visibly quite moved, and we could see that there was some emotion really kind of coming through. And when we asked him afterwards how he's feeling, we learned that for the first time in years since he went deaf in that ear, he felt balanced hearing through the experience, through this combination of the vibroacoustics physically stimulating the body, but also the way we've created audio to trick the brain and the hemispheres in that. And it's still a fascinating modality that we're able to, in a short period of time, we're able to reprogram and calibrate brain hemispheres and hearing. And that's just the beginning of kind of scratching the surface of a lot of incredible, I wouldn't say miracles because it sounds, it's out there, but it's definitely scratching the surface between medical information and also crossing these really delicate boundaries of some of the unknowns. It's really powerful.
I'm curious, on the front end, how do you go about crafting and curating an experience that you hope is universal for everybody? You want some kind of baseline, I'm assuming, response, but then that baseline response becomes a springboard to who knows what. So how do you, is there an avatar in mind, a person in mind? Like, who is the person you're thinking of when you want them laying down in this bed and having this experience? How do you even craft something like that?
our goal was to not only reinvent the idea of what meditation is, but reinvent the idea of what meditation music can be. And if we look at meditation music in general, if we all pulled out our phones right now and went to meditation music, I guarantee you we're all going to find the same chimes,
Few of the same tracks, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's it's, without it sounding kind of cliche, it's a little predictable and it's not that inspiring, right? So if we want to use music to inspire the body and help you travel inwards, one of the goals that we had really identified through the years and years of research was, in order for us to help you travel inwards and work through the layers of emotions and the layers of baggage and the years of trauma that we all hold, and pain, we needed to use music to drive emotion, right? And if you think about I was saying earlier, like if you think about any cinematic moment that has brought you to tears, or you've laughed like uncontrollably,
Yeah, just moved you in any
just
kind of way.
moved you, but to bring the tears and make you cry in a movie, that moment is driven by a musical apex that gets you to that moment where you release that energy. Now, if you watch that same movie without the music, right,
Yeah.
you're not going to get to that level of deep emotion. So
Probably
if you take,
feel pretty empty.
yeah, it's flat, and it's because
Flat,
music and resonance and vibration is the language of how we drive emotion. So we took, in terms of the creation of music, we kind of built it like a layer cake, right? So the first layer, the foundation layer of everything that we've created, is always driven by science and research and fundamental vibrations and frequencies and scales that are designed to directly talk to your nervous system to help take you out of these sympathetic states and driving these calmer, taking you out of that fight or flight state and helping your nervous system relax.
So there are known wavelengths, known sounds that irrefutably do this to most people.
Yeah.
In terms of like seeking that kind of like calming parasympathetic response.
Exactly. So there's science-based, researched frequencies and scales that are designed to help with anxiety, to help with stress, to help with sleep, and as well as help with creativity. So depending on where you are on the scale. So we've kind of built all the base layers of everything we do in these foundations of science and research. But then what we're doing is really kind of bringing in these really human and emotional kind of layers to it. And what we decided to do was really kind of move away from this old idea of what meditation music is, and really took inspiration from a cinematic score, right? So to my point, when you're driven to that moment, that high emotional moment, if we can get you in a state where we can drive emotion, that's the most human experience you can ever possibly
Absolutely.
feel is feeling. It's emotion, right? It's the most human thing we can do. So the goal was, okay, if we're going to help you meditate in a totally different way, we needed to help you open up emotions and work through those layers. So the music we created was really driven by these cinematic scores. So the music kind of feels more like a soundtrack from like Dune or Interstellar than it does,
really.
Some tchotchke bowls and chimes. And we found that sense of journey and the high level of production that brings was just so powerful. And that's kind of why we brought just so many layers in. And obviously Nick Littlemore is our musical director, who is just a phenomenal creative innovator. So we're obviously very lucky to have someone like him behind the helm, just really driving these musical kind of journeys, which are so insane.
I kind of heard you say earlier, it's really kind of getting people, even yourself at first, to really rethink what this has to look like. When we think calm, when we think quiet, stillness, meditation, we all tend to kind of go to a particular look, a feel, a sound. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things you probably had to overcome, is to not only create something new, but to break the mold entirely of a concept that you want people to grasp for the thing, the actual tangible thing, and the experience that you're going to offer them. How is that being received? I mean, because you're really it's like a paradigm shift.
Yeah. And it's taken us years to develop as well. Like because what's really fascinating is about the recording process and being in the studio last few years with Nick is typically when most artists record music, you're getting instant gratification and feedback. So if you've ever been in a recording studio with a band or anyone watching, and from my background coming from working in pain management within the music industry, I had years and years of exposure just watching these incredible artists just create and download from source and immediately interpret. And it's the most beautiful thing is watching an artist in real time, just
in their zone,
and downloading this information and immediately just watching them hit the piano and just watching magic come out, and it's stream of thought, it's stream of consciousness. And it's such a beautiful flow state to witness. So kind of being in the studio, we're able to really see that and learn a lot, but that format was basically based on immediate feedback. You hear a hook and you hear a riff and you're like, oh, that's incredible. Let's repeat that. Let's loop that. Let's stretch that. And then with this though, we spent months in the studio recording music and with Nick, and we basically plugged it in, we pressed play, and in 30 seconds we were like, it's a bust. It doesn't work.
Oh, no.
Right. And because it's not about this, it's about feeling. So the entire experience is a sensory-based experience. So any kind of like bump in the road, like if you're driving in a car and you hit a speed bump, it's kind of like that. So every little moment of finesse had to seamlessly kind of take you there. And actually the goal when we were creating it, and I can certainly share more on that moment when we came up with this idea, but it was really about, can we symbiotically connect you? So I've always been fascinated. I'm such a lover of sci-fi and fantasy, and I've just since I was a little kid, I've always loved the conversation of the conversation of man and machine, or man and the maker, right? Always in every sci-fi, it's always about understanding who our creator is, and it's the one thing that we will never know.
The ultimate
right?
question, the
right?
timeless question, yeah.
And and then the irony of the man wanting to own machine, right? It's like we can't understand who our creator is, but yet
so we have to create
the God complex in us. We want to then own machines, right? We want to have that connection. So I've just always loved that paradigm, that kind of dissection. And with this, it was really about, can we symbiotically connect you to the machine, so to the pod, and can we help you become one with the song, and can that song then seamlessly take you somewhere? And that was the biggest kind of goal, was, in how we kind of created that experience, is can we connect you to a song and literally take you somewhere?
Was there a defining moment? It sounds like there kind of was a we got it moment.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of moments, but the big aha, it was something that I've been developing this whole vision of an ecosystem of technology products for a long time, and we had the whole blueprint, and but it was really, to be honest with you, it was really our it was about 10 years ago, we had a life-changing moment with the introduction of plant medicine into my life, and that seemingly was the gateway to opening up my creative pathways and my ability to have confidence in myself to take these ideas and implement it into a real thing. So I was definitely inspired by years and years of personal work and breaking down these old archetypes that I had been holding on to, and releasing that, and using the plant medicine journeys and ceremonies to break these old patterns and build these new archetypes and become, someone that, and actually listen to the information you're getting. And that was what I'm most inspired about what with this does, is if we can get people to reduce their states of stress, these deep states of unconscious behaviors that they're in, the ability for us, when we're tapped into source and we're tapped into that higher state of consciousness, it is the most powerful experience a human can feel and have. And that was always the goal of, can we help people achieve a higher state of consciousness? Can we help people connect to the highest version of themselves? And the way to do that is by essentially creating a stress-free state for the body. And in order to create a stress-free state, we needed to basically talk to the body in the language of the universe. And the language of the universe is sound, energy, and frequency and vibration. So it was really about, okay, how do we start talking to the body in a language that it operates on, not a language of synthetic medicine and protocols and physical touch. We needed to treat the stress state before you can treat the body. And that was kind of where my background in sports science and injury prevention came from, where I was in this industry for 20 years treating the physical body. And I went down every science biomechanical rabbit hole I could go. And I got to a point after 20 years and I was just treating body after body and just not making the impact that I knew I could do. And it was in that time I realized that we needed to really address the environment that your body's in. And if you treat the environment, then you can get your treatments. Then your body can respond to physical touch. So it was really this kind of evolution of
it's kind of
so
like
many layers.
giving your car an alignment, but then constantly driving down the same crappy road full of potholes and bumps and stuff and wondering why isn't this working? Why isn't this sticking?
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things that, in pain management, rehabilitation, physical therapy, a lot of stuff I know that your background is in that does the job. And that's where a lot of us go, myself included. We go, I have a pain, I have an issue, I don't feel my best. Let me go adjust the body.
Yeah.
Let me run, jog, yoga, workout, get manual therapy. But to your point, if we're coming back to the same environment internally and or externally, we're just throwing ourselves back down that same crappy road again.
Exactly. Exactly. And also to your, I know you've had some injuries in the past with your history and your story. And one of the things that's really important is the archetypes that you develop over time is the knowing of when to let them go and when to keep moving forward. And the one thing that the work that I've done on myself through self-discovery through the Sava has been, I grew up as an injured athlete. It was a big part of my archetype story. And I had 3 knee reconstructions, from 13 years old to like 18. And
you started young.
I started young, man. I was on the physio table since I was a little kid, right? So like I had my first major ankle injury at like 11. And from that, it was just like a domino effect. And so my whole childhood growing up was just pain, injury, back to the physio table, like a ping pong table. And I kind of took that identity and I naturally went into the world of injury rehab and pain management, and I wanted to help people. I'm an empathetic, I'm an empath and wanted to help heal and connect. So I built this whole 25 year career on this character that came from my childhood about this poor injured person, and I wanted to help people. Now, where I'm going with this is it's fascinating because while I built a great career in that and my skills were certainly translated into helping people, but for myself, I couldn't escape the pain conversation because I kept telling everyone, this is who I am. I'm this injured athlete. I'm here to help you in pain. I'm also helping people in pain. So you get caught in this archetype of the pain body, right? You're physically talking about pain.
You're building that reality.
You're building the reality. And I could never escape the pain. And I even as a practitioner, I had so much self-guilt because I was fixing all these things. I did very well in my career and, worked with, an incredible dream list of people that I still pinch myself of where I've been able to go and who I've been able to work with. But then I had to look at myself and say, I've built this whole thing on this really toxic kind of archetype where I keep telling myself about pain and injury. And I think once you can clip those cords and clip those archetypes, that's when the release can happen. That's when you can heal. And
make it sound so easy. Just whip out the scissors and cut the cord, right?
Yeah, and it's work. It's years and years of work in evolving your archetype and moving out of this stuck format of being in the pain cycle. And, pain in general is just, I've seen pain from everything from, broken toes all the way through to really severe neurological disorders that, make people's nerves feel like they're on fire, So over this time, I've seen the full spectrum of pain very closely and realized so much of it is unfortunately a major psychological conversation that you're having with yourself. And that's where for me it was like, okay, we really need to start shifting that conversation and really tapping into bigger conversations around our spirituality, our mental health, and how our mind influences our biological state, which is really, really powerful, and how our mind talks to our body. So that's kind of where this started to come from.
But that's kind of the whole point of all this, and a really exciting opportunity for somebody to hopefully walk away from this conversation mulling over. And that's if you have not been able to cut the cord in your life on that identity. And I think I don't need to really describe it. I think people, when you're out of truth with yourself and in truth with yourself. It's just kind of this inner pull. And for whatever reason, if you struggle with cutting the cord on that so that you can explore what your true identity is or where your truest identity needs to kind of evolve to, experiences like this, altered states of consciousness. And I'm not talking jumping into the jungle, plant medicine all in right away, you know, breath work, just getting out of your comfort zone and sitting in discomfort long enough to kind of just show you your edges. I think that is such a beautiful point of all of this, is that you don't need, there's no readiness required. If you are more ready, great. I think you might kind of, you know, tip over a little bit sooner. But if you're just at a point to where you're just open to the idea of being disrupted and being, for what, 20 minutes up against your edges, like that's really where cutting the cord can begin. Yeah,
exactly. No, absolutely, exactly. And think of the most simplistic form. And at the end of the day, we want to create a conversation around people using music as a form of healing. And, you know, for me, a big early inspiration was, you know, looking back at my childhood of, you know, growing up. I didn't have a smartphone growing up. They didn't exist at the time. So, so for me as a kid growing up, I would go to the, you know, I just have these powerful memories of going to the record store and buying a record, and I would run home and I would put the record on and I would sit in my room on my bed and I would obsessively read the covers. I'd read all the lyrics, but I would sit there intently for that hour, just listening to the album and just immersing myself in the music. And if you think about how in the modern day now, how we experience music while cooking dinner, in the car,
it's more passive, right?
At the gym, while we're at yoga, at concerts with friends. When was the last time we just stripped away all the layers of information and download and actually just became one with an experience? And that, if we really simplify it, just you sitting on a bed, even if you can't, you know, take one of these or you can't experience it, just sitting on a bed and being connected with one thing that emotionally connects you, that is a profound form of meditation. That is a profound connection that drives emotion. And back to my point earlier, the pathway to helping someone unlock these layers is driving emotion. And if we can have people having these emotional experiences, we then begin the process of awareness and self-awareness. And we start creating self-awareness, we have the ability for people to change. And if you can change, you impact people's lives, your family improves, your love life improves, and it becomes this real infectious pattern that can come from something so simple as just having awareness to oneself. You know?
You've shared with me as part of the experience and everybody here, the depths to which you went to really curate these sounds. And this isn't no shade here to Shutterstock or, you know, stock supply. Like it's not just going into a resource and pulling out Himalayan gong or tribal chant or ambient white noise and kind of putting it all together and finding one that works or is unique. You were sharing with me that you actually went to, or on your team, someone went to and sat with Tibetan monks, like 30 Tibetan monks to capture these chants, going down into the rainforest to capture these bird sounds. Why such great lengths to curate such unique sounds? And how do you feel like those are actually coming together to be something so different?
No, I thank you. And I love that because it's in the intention, right? The intention is to create something that is real, right? And however way we want to mask it, when you're using stock music or stock imagery or anything, and no offense to anyone that does that, but there's deep connection and emotion and intention that goes into that. And what we wanted to do with the creation of the music was we wanted to make sure that you're feeling the energy and the intention that's gone into it. So every single element has been handcrafted, handmade. Like to your point, we literally had
cherry picked all over the world.
Yeah, like there's a couple of tracks, the one you heard today, where there's this section where these birds just start kind of arriving in this kind of strange way. And, you know, we literally had our audio team go into the jungle in Mexico and they spent 2 nights camping with microphones just tuning into birds. And we
were you aware of the birds that you wanted? Like we want these specific birds
no,
in this area?
We also want to enable creativity. We had we gave of what the concept was, and then we sent our team in to go in and capture that. And it was really to, essentially to create these organic moments, and also part of the storytelling of what we're doing with the music is also documenting it, right? So we want to tell these stories of how these songs are created. And I think there's, again, to create a more emotional connection to what you're experiencing, I think it's really important for people to know that behind the scenes, this is, we're literally sending people into the Amazon. We're sending people all around the world to meet with these monks and have these real incredible experiences. And a big part of what we're creating now, but also what we're creating in the future is a series of sound journeys that connect with a lot of indigenous cultures and ancestral wisdom. And there's a few things we're still working through that I can't fully share yet, but I think it's really important that while this is clearly a very progressive sci-fi, focused
very progressive
product and experience, while everything's grounded in science and research, we also cannot forget the ancient wisdom that comes from generations and generations of ancestral wisdom. And I think for us, we want to really marry that intention and make sure that, everything that we create has impact, but also, has a real depth to it. I think the depth in what we create is really important. So and everything's, as you've seen with the experience, like everything is attention to detail, right? Everything in the product materials, like the product, when you touch it, this material, for example, it's something that we've been working on for years. We wanted this organic material to adapt to room temperature. When I was saying earlier, we wanted to create this symbiotic connection between you and machine. It's not just through the connection of you and the song, it's also the sensory feedback and reaction as well. So certain materials will maintain cold temperatures, and when you touch something that feels cold, like you feel a disconnect, right? So even when you lay in the pod, this thing needs to feel like it's part of you and connecting with you. So everything's just in those little details, from the design all the way through to the music creation as well.
You have to watch the video. Everybody just watch the video. This design is stunning. And so to see something like this, I think, first of all, visually just be so appealing already puts me and everybody else who's in the experience in a totally different state of thinking.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself. It was in intrigue. I was in curiosity. I was in wonder. I was in sci-fi. I was already connecting the dots to a couple of our favorite films, Blade Runner and TRON. And it just immediately, I'm in that kind of nostalgic, happy, centered to me place.
Yeah.
And then I get to lay down, and then please walk us through, like, from design to experience, like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And so with the design, I mentioned earlier, what I wanted to do is, the idea of sound and sound therapy, we wanted to really kind of raise the bar and reinvent what that could be. And for us to be taken seriously, we really needed to build something that, from a design standpoint, made a statement and also objectively looks like a piece of art, right? So we wanted to create something from a high design standpoint, and very much inspired by my love of sci-fi and fantasy, from the original Blade Runners to TRON, and all these incredible.
This is like TRON Legacy. Like, they wish they had this on set.
Exactly. And I think for us to bring maybe a little bit more joyfulness and playfulness and some of the wonderful creativity and curiosity that comes from sci-fi is kind of the dream state, right? It's like fantasizing. And if we're going to put you in a pod to help you travel inwards, it also needed to look like something that could potentially take you somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it was a big part of the design inspiration. I basically designed the pod to have this kind of asymmetrical form to it. So if you kind of see that the pod has this kind of sense of motion, like it has movement in it. And it was really important as a product to translate that sense of motion, right? Your mind is always in a state of motion. Your synapses, your cells, your entire body is always in a state of motion. You're never, ever still, ever. So we kind of wanted to translate that sense of motion through it. And then one of the other things we did that was really important was, you'll see these like contoured wings in the design. So we brought those in for a very specific reason. So in human psychology, and when anyone is in a really high stress state, in fight or flight, anyone's having an episode, and the two most calming touch points for the human body is lateral touch, right? So if you really think about it and distill it down, it's a hug, right?
Absolutely.
The human condition needs to be hugged. Doesn't matter how old we are. It comes back from our time in the womb, from our childhood, and in any states of stress, the human condition needs to be held and comforted and feel safe. And if you can feel safe, your body will relax and you'll be able to recover from the traumas you're going through. So from a design standpoint, when you lay down on top of the pod, your subconscious nervous system is gently receiving those hug touch points. So it's subtle, but it's enough for your nervous system to actually acknowledge this kind of womb-like, cradle-like kind of holding position, which creates an environment for your body to actually feel safe, and it enables it to relax. And for example, we did some research and found that any product or anything that has a lid or a chamber that you climb into, your subconscious nervous system stays in a sense of high alert.
Because it's like, I have to get out of here.
There's a risk. There is a potential risk of you being trapped in that.
Yeah.
And that subtle subconscious awareness that's firing in the background is limiting your ability to fully let go. So even if you're getting the best, whatever therapy it is in that moment, you're not fully allowing your system to let go. So we kind of designed it to have this open top. So it created this kind of sense of space and freedom, but also the cradling of the hug and the hold.
It's very noticeable.
Yeah. And thank you. And and then underneath what you're laying on, we've created this specialized textured foam that we've worked years and years to develop to kind of make you feel like you're floating. And then we've, built this platform. So it has these, we're basically channeling vibration and frequency into your body. So what happens is your body is being kind of hypnotized rhythmically with this kind of womb-like heartbeat kind of rhythm of bass kind of pulsating through your body. And then simultaneously your ears and brain is picking up on all this ear candy, right? There's all this like spatial ear candy that's twinkling and
it's like,
kind
what's
of,
that? What's that?
and we've worked really hard to kind of create this spatial sound that inspires you and just creates this kind of sense of curiosity and joy and anyways, whatever emotion we're trying to create. So there's this kind of dual pattern that's happening where your body's being kind of put in this trance-like state of vibration, and then your mind is being tuned into these frequencies and sounds that's playing through you. And we have the ability to play specific sounds and frequencies that tell your nervous system to relax and go to sleep or recover. But we can also drive your nervous system at the other end of the spectrum.
So it can really be kind of pick your own journey.
Yeah. So you can choose. So whatever emotional state you're in, it's not always about just, emptiness and relaxation through silence. We can also stimulate the brain to think, right? So we can actually, if you're about to go into like a creative project and you just need that, like you got that brain fog and you just like, I just need a little like reset. Well, you can go on a sound journey that has been designed to stimulate your brain and enhance the pineal gland activation to actually help creative pathways in information. And we've been able to use just various techniques and between the technology we've developed in the pod to enhance that, and then the way the music's been produced as well. So it's this kind of like beautiful coming together.
That's incredible. It makes me think about people who say, I can't relax, so therefore I can't meditate, or I've got brain fog, or I can't, for whatever reason, tap into those creative juices. A lot of times, there could be a lot of factors contributing to those things, but it quite literally could just be your physiological state at that moment.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like relief that should be found in hearing that, because if you can do something to jar your system in a positive and intentional way so that you can finally step into that state that you so desperately want or potentially even need, that's very rewarding to hear.
Yeah.
Very rewarding to hear.
Yeah. And how did, like, just on your experience, like, how did that feel for you when you kind of went through that transition? So you went from the calm experience and then went into the create experience. So you kind of got to experience these two very kind of polarizing experiences, very different, but just how does that on your...
The first portion, the calm, for me was much more, I felt the complete full body mind release. Yeah. It was just deep restorative relaxation and like this journey sensation. And then the second part was very, just that transition of the sound into kind of the Japanese vocalists.
Oh yeah, it was incredible.
Like Japanese chants, for lack of a better.
Yeah,
Am I saying that
we had
correctly?
these icaros that were being
Yes.
sung,
Okay.
and yeah,
That was just so. Immediately came back into my body, not in a non-relaxed way. Like I'm so aware of my body.
Yeah.
I'm so aware of what's going on, but just embodied.
Yeah.
I should say, and that those kind of vocals just were a great reminder of the human experience.
yeah,
I felt so connected to that other human
yeah.
vocalizing and singing and chanting.
Yeah, I love that. And that was so much something that we work so hard on, is to, again, to keep coming back to that point of emotion, right? Like emotion in terms of how, when you look at the product, how does that make you feel? You said before, it brings on curiosity, wonder, excitement. How does the music make you feel? And even with the way the vocals were coming in for the Create song, it was really about, there was, even for me, when I hear that song, there's this kind of like a silliness to it. There's like a playfulness. Like that's what I get from it. I feel this childlike kind of silliness in the way we've used the vocals for this song.
Which is great. We all could probably use a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and I think there's just these layers, and you might feel a very different thing, right? Because you're tuned very differently. You might feel a different type of emotion from that. So there's just, and that goes back to our earlier point of like why we had someone literally camping in the jungle with microphones to tune the ears. We could have easily just pulled
They don't get paid enough for this.
I know. And we
just
could
find a Google track.
We could have easily just pulled stock footage and maybe it sounds the same. I don't know. But we know it's real, and we put that intention in there, and that translates to your experience, and that brings more feelings of emotions through it.
It's like, what do they say? You know, the recipe, the secret ingredient is love. You
Yeah.
know, when you try to mimic your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather's like favorite cookie or dish,
so good.
you know, the exact ingredients are all right there, but it just doesn't quite hit.
Not as good as grandma's, is it?
Right? Exactly.
That's such a good point.
It's like when you have this knowing of the depths to which somebody went to to create something for you.
Yeah.
In my experience, I'm always more connected to that experience, that thing, that food.
Yeah.
So you know, I think there's a human knowing.
Yeah. The intention in it is really powerful. And then the other thing is, like, even with the LED, you know, as you call it, a very TRON inspired, and Blade Runner's been a huge, influence for me throughout the design process. But even with the environmental lighting with the LED, the light will also change colors based on what sound journey you're on. So we know colors like blue signify a more calm state for your environmental nervous system. So you're actually perceptually receiving that environmental mood shift by just being in a room with blue light like this. And then when the Create songs come on, the whole pod will change color, and it moves to like a warm orange amber type color. And that, when you wake up from the journey, that you're waking up to this sunlight, right? You're waking up to this brightness, this warmth, which is also telling your brain from a creative standpoint to wake up and stimulate. So we've kind of really factored a lot, everything in, from just the environmental feeling of the experience to the ergonomic feeling of the experience, and then to the sensory experience that you're feeling. And then when you kind of pair the environmental, the ergonomic, the sensory kind of feedback, it's a pretty powerful experience.
Very powerful. Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that, because I think there's some really strong takeaways for somebody who's listening and going, I would like to just adopt this somehow, some way in my everyday life. And the struggles that we have to be able to set the intention, to execute, and to keep that energy, that calm, that focus, that meditative state, whatever. You're saying some really important things, and some things that we might be missing. And that's what colors are in our environment, what light, ambient light, intentional light, sound, smell, touch, feel, temperature. I can remember the first couple of times I really intentionally tried to calm down, to meditate, to insert stillness into a regular wellness practice. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I had no idea. Maybe a couple, but they're so beneficial. They really set the tone and the potential for that practice long before you actually even try to drop in. So there's that component, but then also devil's advocate-ish a little bit. The wellness industry is booming right now. There are so many wellness technologies and health spas and tools and, at the local gym or like these crazy retreats. Is this just another super high-end wellness thing that can only really be access to the already affluent, the already well person and kind of already has that advantage. All intents and purposes, couldn't we just lay down, close our eyes, and get the same place?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been trying for decades with that, like, with the various meditation apps and the modalities that have been available. And if we look at the data right now, we're in an epidemic of anxiety and stress. So it's clearly not, the current format isn't working. So we need that needs to change. And, I think for us was absolutely, building. So what we've been doing behind the scenes is building an entire ecosystem of products. So what we're releasing right now is the Sava Pod, which is the kind of top tier. It's the premium ultra luxe kind of version of what we've created. And these are going to be going into elite professional sporting facilities, from medical facilities to luxury kind of wellness hotels, social wellness clubs, that
already kind of going into that type of environment.
We're going into that environment. They're also going to homes. But what we're also doing is introducing in probably short order, we're probably about 18 months away. It's already done, but basically we're going to be introducing a low-cost consumer version as well. So the entire goal was to not, we want to make this accessible for all. But in order for us to educate the market, we kind of need to get these into these trusted establishments that people already have the trust and they have the experience to, which will allow us to give the broader public the ability to go in and experience it. So,
and then choose to maybe kind of bring it home.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are working incredibly hard in developing these really strategic partnerships that's going to allow everyone access to coming in and experiencing this, even if they can't afford it, right? So even for a low cost visit, like going to a yoga class, you can go in and have this immersive sound therapy.
Maybe this will be on someone's ClassPass account, next year or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have these this ability to access it. And then over time, as we continue to grow and scale, there'll be the more kind of home friendly versions that's going to come out as well. So yeah, there's lots of exciting developments in the works.
Another question comes to mind for me. What's the protocol? I'm curious, what duration are you all seeing the most benefit from in terms of a one-off experience? And then what do you have, if any, in terms of longevity? Have you seen this person has done it 3 times a week for 22 minutes for 6 months?
Yeah, so the current research and science right now shows that 22 minutes is the optimal window to receive the most benefits from vibroacoustic sound therapy. So on our app, we've got express versions of 11 minutes to 22, 33, 44 minutes of each sound journey that you can choose from. But in terms of the 22 minutes is the minimum, that kind of minimum recommendation dose. But like any practice, like daily exercise, daily meditation, the more you do it, the better you get at it, the deeper you go. And so it's really, I think if anything from once a week to once a day is all applicable. But what we've basically done is we've just begun some incredible research programs where we're working with some incredible partners where we're already we have research programs underway that is studying the benefits for PTSD, trauma. We've also got a research program underway right now that's studying the human performance benefits of the product for professional athletes. And
how are you measuring that?
So the programs are looking at everything from brain waves. So we're actually monitoring the reaction of the brain hemisphere and actually how sound is actually influencing our actual brain frequency.
So like cognition and like brain response time kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Like actually looking at the actual entire brain hemisphere and how the music is being able to retune it. We're also seeing applications where we're testing. So we're looking at everything from, the brain waves and the frequency to HRV, heart rate response. We're also looking into the lymphatic response as well, which is a really, really big one.
Yes,
Probably isn't getting talked about enough because knowing that the human body is over 70% fluid between lymphatic blood and water, you actually have more lymphatic liquid in your body than you do blood. And lymphatic disease and dysfunction is one of the biggest drivers of chronic pain. It's one of the biggest drivers of disease and neurological disorders.
So are you all seeing this move
Mm-hmm.
the lymphatic system? Are
Yeah. So that's what we're,
Yeah.
that's why we have research programs underway right now. So we're deeply, really prioritizing the deep understanding of these kind of impacts.
So I can stop dry brushing. I can just do this guy from now on.
That's the goal. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of why for us, while we're, launching the company right now, but we're really prioritizing the deeper understanding on the medical applications. We already have incredible research on the benefits of it for Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, musculoskeletal disorders. There's research that shows that test groups have just, from doing 22 minutes alone, have seen a 54% reduction in chronic pain, just general chronic pain and permanent reductions.
Wow. So not just gone while
Not just
in
gone
session.
while. These have been long-lasting.
Residual pain management.
Long-lasting through repeated use.
Wow.
So these are just the beginnings of the information that we're just scratching the surface of.
Where are you taking it next? Like clearly this is a product of an incredible vision and someone who has immense creativity. Where do you pull your creativity from? I know we kind of talked about, love for sci-fi and certain types of music, but where do you pull your creativity from maybe now? Because I'm sure you are thinking, the future. This is an incredible example of creativity, but where do you go from here?
Yeah, so we've done a few things that's a little against the norm in terms of how companies are built. So we've actually spent the last few years behind the scenes in stealth mode, and we've actually been building the next 10 years of innovation behind the scenes, and we've already built the next 3 products in our entire pipeline that's already designed, developed, and ready to go.
And you waited quite a long period of time until this kind of came out, so that you're kind of just doing the same thing again, right?
Well, we spent a lot of time kind of building. It was really important, the vision, as we talk about creative states, and my love of world building and fantasy genres was really inspired around building these product ecosystems that talk to each other. And the goal was, can we build a technology company that is really truly at the intersection of physical, emotional, and mental health, right? So the product ecosystem that we've built and are kind of implementing is a series of technology products that integrate all the elements of physical, emotional, and mental well-being.
Beautiful.
And while this is as you've experienced, it's a combination of mind and body, right? It is truly, and obviously when you start saying mind and body connection, your eyes start to roll after a while, because we've heard it a million times. It sounds a little corny after a while in the wellness industry, in terms of the overuse of,
it can be,
of
absolutely,
mind-body
yeah,
connection.
yeah.
But this is a real true, I think for us, and I'm just digressing a little bit, one of the earlier questions you asked was the inspiration. And I think what's really powerful is what we really wanted to ask through our research and experience through plant medicine and just knowing how far we can push consciousness, like how far consciousness can go, and actually having a sneak peek behind the curtain of source of information. And I'm sure you've had your experiences as well. And you have these profound moments of understanding of source and information. And that for me was the biggest goal of building this. Can we get people to achieve a higher state of consciousness by at least just moving the population a little further forward? So the goal was, can we get people off the meditation cushion? And so if you look at the whole spectrum of the meditation kind of line, you have meditation that we know of now. You have at the other end of the spectrum, the psychedelic experience, which is the most profound human experience you can probably ever have. And I think every human being on this planet should just try that, or not try it, but just to know what the human body can do, and
be open to that concept.
Be open to that concept of actually just understanding how powerful our mind is and when we can activate it. So I think it was really about, okay, if we know the majority of the population is here in the typical meditation, 20 minutes a day, listening to a mantra or listening to their guru, and then the other end of the spectrum is the psychedelic experience, and knowing that even when psychedelics do become legalized, and that agenda is incredible of what people like Rick Doblin and MAPS are doing, and just pushing this initiative, the mass population is going to take a long time to really do that. And so our goal was, can we get someone from here to here? at least move us forward to that direction and start having bigger conversations. And I think that is where we're going to make the most impact. And even today when we finished our session, the integration component, which is so powerful,
so
right?
powerful.
Like,
and necessary, in my opinion.
That ability for us to not only go through the experience and travel inwards, have these conversations, work through layers of emotions, but then what I love more than anything about this experience is actually the post-conversation experience, and where we get to, as also grown men, talking about our emotions and talking about our feelings and watching how that opens people up like a flower. Like we've literally seen some of the most alpha type A kind of, people come in and break them open immediately after that experience, and talking about their childhood and their emotions. And that, for me, that is healing, right? That is, if the ultimate goal is to help people, I think if we can do that, it's really powerful. So, yeah.
It's been a powerful experience to go through it individually, and such an even more uniquely powerful experience to go through it in a group dynamic now. So I will say thank you for both experiences. Thank you for sharing this experience with me and the audience. Before I get to my final question, in the kind of the wellness space in general, what are you most excited about? What do you kind of see the space, or maybe even on the consumer side, kind of progressing towards an area that you personally feel very aligned with and are happy about, and kind of maybe see, something really grabbing hold in a positive way?
Yeah, I think it's a great, I think the wellness industry is going through like a resonance right now.
Yeah, I agree.
A renaissance right now. And I feel like there's this big catalytic shift that's happening right now. And I feel like it feels so obvious. Like, it's like, how has it taken this long to get to this point where
What took us so long? Yeah.
We're talking about ancestral wisdom finally, right? Like obviously finally, like, of course, people have been singing this song for generations, but I think as a collective, we're starting to have these conversations in much bigger circles. We're seeing, these bigger, more important conversations happening. So I feel like what's happening in the wellness industry is a deeper awareness to holistic healing, to a balance between medical and also the unknown, right? I think, which is really powerful, because everything right now is still, I'm loving all the neuroscientists that are out, and I love all the science and data that's coming out, because I've been wanting that my whole life. But I'm also like, I'm wanting everyone to take a breath and also look at the things that we don't know. Let's keep curious, and let's keep pushing all the things. Maybe it's not in a research paper right now, but doesn't mean it's not feasible or it's not capable. And back to that God complex of us wanting to own the machines, right? It's like this ironic balance. So I think, and that's kind of why I have in here, I have this quote by Edgar Cayce. And Edgar Cayce he was one of America's first ever clairvoyants and psychics. And I think he was born in like 1870s, and he. But can you imagine being a psychic in the early 1900s?
No.
You were a crazy man.
Yeah, you would have been burned at the stake. Yeah,
you're a kook. You're right. So, and back then he was famous for being called the sleep prophet. And one of his claims was he could transcend consciousness through sleep and meditation. And one of his biggest visions he had was he believed that sound was going to be the medicine of the future. So we kind of wanted to use that in this experience to really remind people that we are in the future, and we also have to, remember that some of these kooky, crazy people we've written off in history and time may be onto something. Just because it's not in a science research paper doesn't mean it's necessarily real. And yeah, he was actually the psychic and advisor to like Thomas Edison and Marilyn Monroe and Houdini as well, like major influential figures of our time. So I think it's like a nice reminder to balance the scales of, yes, let's ground everything in science and research, absolutely, but also let's keep looking at what's ahead, and maybe let's not forget some of the ancestral wisdom or some of the maybe the outside the box thinkers that have been in our thoughts over these years, because I think it's got to be a healthy balance.
It all matters. It all matters. And I kind of feel like I got an interpretation of what could be your answer to this from that last statement. But, this is all meant to help me and the audience learn something new, or to be reminded of something we can come back to for our own personal wellness, our own personal resilience. But then also to be able to learn how to apply these things in a unique way and to move forward in life and to keep living a life ever forward, I say. So what do those two words mean to you? How would you say you live a life ever forward?
Life ever forward for me it's really grounded in a collective consciousness. I think that is, for me, is the ultimate goal of an ever forward life is creating a collective consciousness, raising our awareness and vibration. And I think with the implementation of the Sava pod is creating these experiences for people to talk about their emotions, talk about their feelings. Let's have people open up. And I think if we can create a better collective conversation around vulnerability and healing, that is essentially the pathway to better families, relationships, your partnerships. That is, for me, is the gateway to a healthier life, a healthier family, caring for your loved ones. I think it's it sounds simple, but it's a profound goal, is to, create that more collective consciousness, which is what we're working towards.
If I can do it, and if you can do it, and if we all can do it individually, then we all are doing it collectively.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm after as well.
Yeah, exactly. And just on that we've talked a lot about vibration, energy, frequency, but while, we've kind of shown on the floor, like the frequency of energy moving through water, but your energy, my energy is also, it's a reminder for us that how you show up for people and how you show up to others directly impacts other people, right? And if you've ever spent time with a shaman or someone deeply spiritual, just being in their presence, you feel grounded. You get this sense of, I want to make people feel like that. That's what I get. When I'm around someone of that deep spiritual nature, I walk away feeling I can do better. I want to make people feel like that when I walk into a room.
Yeah.
And that is infectious. That's such a powerful thing to have. And in the same way, when someone walks into a room in a really bad state, or you just meeting someone for the first time and you get this ping, like something's off, you get that creepy kind of vibe.
We all know that, yeah.
And we've all experienced it. And that is, a clear example of someone's vibrational frequency being so off scale that you're feeling their energy before they even say anything. You're just feeling it. And I think going back to that collective consciousness narrative that is how we can make change, is through how we show up from a level of vibration and frequency.
Well, I'm down to feel this vibration and frequency anytime. 2 times has been incredible. I'm very appreciative. Thank you again so much. If you all listening, watching, please got to check out this video. It's so beautiful. I'm so proud to kind of bring this interpretation of my experience here beyond just a conversation we could have had anywhere else. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Where can everybody go to connect with Sava, to maybe tap into an experience and learn more about what, Tersa and the whole world's got going on?
Thank you. And thank you for this great conversation. And it's been amazing. So you can go to our website, so tersa.co. We've basically just announced so basically the units are now officially for sale. So we have our pre-order available. We are beginning delivery pretty much next month.
Limited quantities, right?
Yeah. So we're doing limited editions as well. So we're not, so we have a limited edition that we're selling, and then, but everything's available for pre-order, and you can go to the website and learn more.
Well, I'll link for you guys down in the show notes and the description box in the video. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, come to the video. I'll stop saying it, but if you're listening, following, subscribing on your podcast platform of choice does a lot of good for the show, supports us in some big, big ways so we can keep doing big, big things like this. So thank you, and ever forward.